Dear Riv Tovolcherov, good evening and welcome everybody to Maynooth University. It's a great pleasure for me as new president of Maynooth University to be here this evening and to launch this event, this exhibition of screen prints which have come about through an extraordinary collaboration between a visual artist and a printmaker, Geraldine O'Reilly, and poet and writer, Mary O'Donnell. So I understand that for 2 years, Geraldine and Mary, you have collaborated, and this very beautiful, exciting project, which is called Unlegendary Heroes, has come about. And I understand, Geraldine, that you selected 10 of Mary's poems and responded in a series of 10 visual images in watercolour, which were then printed using silk screen at Graphic Studio Dublin. And I understand that that is one of Ireland's oldest fine art printing making studios. So we are enormously privileged to exhibit these images here at Maynooth University Library. And this exhibition will continue until the beginning of May. And in keeping with our very deep commitment to community engagement, the exhibition is, of course, open to the public. And I do hope that many members of the Maynooth community and beyond will come to our library and see this incredible exhibition. And I see that there are many people here already. Geraldine is a graduate of the National College of Art and Design in Dublin. She has exhibited work nationally and internationally, received numerous commissions to produce artworks, and won many awards for her work. And in 2004, she was elected to Estana for her contribution to the arts in Ireland. So Mary O'Donnell, is a renowned poet, short story writer and novelist, and she's also a member of Estana and is a Maynooth University alumnus and studied German and philosophy here. And when Mary and I spoke beforehand, she said it was a little bit of an unusual combination then, but it's a wonderful combination of art subjects. And it's always extra special to welcome a distinguished alumnus back to Maynooth. So welcome both Geraldine and Mary here this evening. And I also like to welcome Kildare County Council Arts Officer. Thank you very much for being here and your support of our event. Now, the 10 poems to which Geraldine responds so vividly are taken from 3 different collections of Mary's poetry, dealing with aspects of female life and experience, and include one of Mary's most essential and defining poems, Unlegendary Heroes. This is often cited and quoted from and included on the Poetry Foundation's website. This poem also appears in Windharp Poems of Ireland since 1916, which was published by Penguin Island in 2015, and also was developed into a performance piece for the Irish Consulate in Boston in November 2020. Other poems deal with the upbeat modern woman who sashays, that's a new word for me, through a celebrating crowd, that's at the wedding, a stranger. An iconic crone figure who intercuts 2 other generations with her need for nourishment, feeding the crone. And tonight I have learned that crone is a wise woman in Ireland, which I didn't know before. And on the contemporary bitter poetic enactment of hair cutting for economic survival in a subsistence culture, 20 inches of hair. Also, one of Dublin's great cafes is evoked as 4 generations of women are recalled, meeting outside Bewley's. And in contrast to this, a group of walkers bear witness to a heron's flight, Heron and the Woman. So these poems are from Mary's highly praised work in such collections as I already mentioned, Unlegendary Heroes, but also those April Fevers and her most recent volume, Massacre of the Birds. Now, the artwork responding to these poems displays Geraldine's acclaimed creative achievement in the manner in which her public has come to value. Sensitive, powerful response to the experiences and moments which define the everyday, both in Ireland and beyond. So I thank you all for joining us this evening to see this wonderful exhibition, to witness the power of female expression through visual art and poetry. I thank Mary and Geraldine most sincerely for undertaking this work and bringing this wonderful work for us to witness here this evening. Enjoy the evening. I look forward to the poetry reading too. Thank you.
I'm not going to talk for very long, so don't get worried. I just wanted to say how I met Mary first. Mary's probably tired of me telling this story, but the late Bernard Loughlin, the director of the Tyrone Guthrie, said to me one time, I was organising an arts festival for County Monaghan, and I was organising a poetry reading, and I had 2 established poets. And he said to me, there's a young up-and-coming poet, Monaghan poet, called Mary O'Donnell. Now, this is back in the 80s. And that's where we met the first time. So I don't know whether that planted something in my head, but we met many times over the years in the Tyrone Guthrie. And I think in 2002 or 3, I did another book with another poet, and Mary said to me, I'd love if you had done it with me. That always stuck in my head too. So I found myself asking her, would she like to work with me? Because, well, I'm a fan of her work anyway, but like a lot of artists, there wasn't any money or anything like that, so we did it anyway, all right? There's a number of people that I want to actually thank who made this possible, and one of them is here this evening, Dermot Ryan, who's the printer, who's a very fine artist in his own right, if you want to look him up. And the bookbinding was done by Eilish Murphy from Folded Leaf. She's an award-winning bookbinder, so she made the actual box. And the letterpress, which was actually done digitally rather than the old-fashioned wooden letters with the metal tips, was done by Mary Plunkett of Belgrave Press. So in a way, the project, even though it was also a collaboration with Mary, it is an entirely collaborative thing in that, a bit like a film, I couldn't have done it on my own. I had to engage the services and skills of other people. I just want to thank the President for opening the exhibition and also the library for being so good to us. And I have to thank Westmeath County Council, where I live, who gives a small grant towards the project, Monaghan County Council, and then most especially Kildare County Council, because without the Kildare County Council grant, it wouldn't have been possible, because that was the money that paid for all the skills that I needed to make the project. Okay, so I'm going to hand you over to Mary, who is going to make a presentation to Lucina.
Geraldine, I'm not sure whether I should have taken it out of the bubble wrap or not, and whether it's, yeah, okay. I'd also like to echo all Geraldine's sentiments. Thank you, Helen, for offering us this wonderful space. Thank you to all the friends who have come here. Thank you especially to Dr. Eeva, the president of the college, not to be mixed up with another Dr. Eeva, who we really welcome you, you know, in Ireland and Maynooth. And but I just want to say also that working with Geraldine was a pleasure. I think we had quite a symbiotic relationship, really. You know, no poems, no drawing, no drawing, no poems. And it worked out very well, despite the various hitches to do with lockdown. And I also have to say, if I'm really honest, the poems were already written. So my role a lot of the time was to do some of the plotting about what we might do regarding how to sell this when it appeared, and how to get, you know, the kind of, what's the word they use nowadays? It's not magnification, amplification that is sometimes needed. But we worked together very well, and I'm actually so honoured to have my work responded to by an artist such as Geraldine. I'm really thrilled. So thank you. Now, Lucina Russell is Kildare Arts Officer, and without her, we couldn't have we couldn't really have done this as easily as we did. It made all the difference and allowed our two imaginations to actually collaborate, which is what we wanted. And so if Lucina would just come forward, I'd like to present you with this for the Kildare Permanent Collection. Would you take one with Geraldine? No, you stay.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to introduce Mary to what is her second time to read here in Maynooth University Library. And indeed, we plan to have Mary back again. She'll be doing a short workshop on poetry writing. So if you're not on our mailing list, please email library.bookings@mu.ie to be added to get notice of this and our many other interesting events. Poet and fiction writer Mary O'Donnell's work is often cited as key in expanding the horizons of Ireland's formerly male-dominated literary world. Her fiction includes the novels The Lightmakers, The Elysium Testament, Where They Lie, and the most recent book, Empire. And short fiction includes Storm Over Belfast. She has published 8 collections of poetry since 1990, including Unlegendary Heroes and Those April Fevers, and Massacre of the Birds, which was published in October 220. And as mentioned earlier, the poems from those collections were primarily used in the artwork, and the books are for sale here. Just one of my colleagues is organising that, and Mary's happy to sign after the reading. A collection of essays on Mary's work was published by Peter Lang Press in 2018, given shape to the moment, the art of Mary O'Donnell, poet, novelist, a short story writer. And of course, we have that and Mary's other books in our library. Mary has held many residencies nationally and internationally. She's a Maynooth graduate, as was mentioned earlier, and holds a PhD in creative writing from University College Cork. She taught for many years on Carlow College, Pittsburgh's Masters in Fine Arts programme and at Irish universities. During 2019, she contributed to the Irish Literature programme at the University of Sao Paulo and is interested in the expansion of Irish studies in South America. Mary will read for approximately 20 minutes. After the reading, we will have questions, and as I mentioned, Mary's happy to sign the book. So I'll hand over to Mary now. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks again, Helen, and thanks also to Elaine Bean, who did so much organising as well. I'm just going to read about 8 poems, or whatever takes 20 minutes. And I will start with Unlegendary Heroes. I remember going to Anna McCarrick probably in 1996, and I knew I was going to write this poem. I had just read or been looking through what was called a South Ulster Parish landscape published by Dr. P.J. Duffy, who taught geography here in Maynooth. Landscapes of South Ulster, it was called. And there was an item in it from it was a folklore survey from 1938 recording the lives of local people in South Ulster. And this is a few of the things that were in the actual folklore survey. Patrick Farrell of Lacca, who is able to mow 1 acre and 1 rood Irish in a day. Tom Gallagher, Cornamuckla, could walk 50 Irish miles in 1 day. Patrick Mulligan, Cremartin, was a great oarsman. Tommy Atkinson, Lismagunshan, was very good at high jumping. John Duffy, Corley, was able to dig half an Irish acre in 1 day. Edward Monaghan, Anna, who could stand on his head on a pint tumbler or on the rigging of a house, which I guess is a great physical achievement. But I didn't, now I believe there is one which records the lives of the women, but at that time I thought, where are the women? I wasn't aware of it at all. So I thought I would invent something. So this is an inventory of imagined lives. Thinking back to, say, in my early childhood, you know, I grew up in the country, and I went to school in Monaghan, and there were the town girls and the country girls, but whether you were a townie or from the country in the 1960s, the early 60s, you were still aware of a certain level, not that I wouldn't put a label on it, but you were aware of the levels of labour that went into the lives that were held together by so many women, to be frank, you know. So this is my version of them. And I knew when I went to the Tyrone Guthrie Centre that I would write this poem quickly enough, and I did. Kathleen McCanna Anagola, who was able to wash a week's sheets, shirts and swaddling, bake bread and clean the house all of a Monday. Birdie McMahon of Falkland walked to Monaghan for a sack of flour 2 days before her 8th child was born. Septa Duffy, Glennon, very good at sewing, embroidered a set of vestments in 5 days. Mary McCabe of Derrynashallog, who cared for her husband's mother in dotage, fed 10 children, the youngest still at the breast during haymaking. Mary Conlon Tully-Ree, who wrote poems at night. Assumpta Meehan Tony Garvey saw many visions and was committed to the asylum. Martha McGinn of Amy, who swam Cornamundon Loch in 1 hour and a quarter. Marita McHugh, Foxhole, whose sponge cakes won first prize at Cloncaw Show. Miss Harper, Corley, female problems rarely ceased, pleasant in ill health. Patricia Curley, Corlat, whose joints ached and swelled though she was young, who bore 3 children. Dora Houston Stranani died in childbirth, aged 14 years. Last words, "Mammy, oh mammy." Rosie McCrudden Ahabog, noted for clean boots, winter or summer, often beaten by her father. Maggie Traynor, Dona, got no breakfasts, fed by the nuns, batch loaf with jam, the best speller in the school. Phyllis McCrudden, Knockafubble, who buried 2 husbands, reared 5 children and farmed her own land. Anne Moffat of Ena, who taught people to read and did not charge. And I saved Anne Moffat for the end because people did things sometimes and they didn't charge, they just did them. So that was 24 years ago now, and yeah, it's a poem which kind of, people seem to like it, that's all I can say, and I like it myself very much now. I won't read all the poems that Geraldine has responded to, but I'm going to read 6 of them. And this one is Feeding the Crone. And as Dr. Eeva was explaining, the Crone is an old Irish woman. She has many other names as well, hag and all kinds of things like that. Some of them sort of verge on the derisory, but they're not really, I don't think. And you think more about becoming a crone as you get older yourself. You know, you mightn't look like the one in Geraldine's drawing, but, you know, we're there. We are there somewhere, and we've accumulated all that wisdom and experience, I suppose. The crone is knocking on my door. Despite myself, I open. A north wind gusts in. Any chance of a cup of tea? She asks, conciliatory, as if we hadn't been through this rigmarole several times already. I wouldn't grudge a person the chance to wet their lips. I'd throw in a biscuit or 2, not to mention a slice of the cake my daughter made yesterday. That's what she needs, a young girl's cake,
duck eggs and spelt flour, nutmeg and bitter butter, her generous finger sifts. I slip the crone a huge triangle, knowing she won't say no. Blue and white frosting sidle down the sides, stick to her fingers, make their way to sweeten her mouth. She swallows and licks, casts a glance at the cake a second time. Again, I cut deep to fill her sagging belly. What else would I do? By the time she's done, she hesitates in the doorway, a smile almost cracking her jowls. That was some cake, she whispers, turning away, patting herself as if she was pregnant. And the next one is called Waiting Outside Bewley's, and it's about really 4 generations of my family have met there at times for tea or for chips or whatever, meringues. My grandmother, my mother, me and my daughter. At that doorway, how often have I glided, smooth-hipped through crowds, to see my mother wait with glossy packages on looped string. She never recognized me until I was before her, but pretended. I saw you, she proclaimed. You move like a hot knife through butter. And once, grandmother's shoe heel snagged on the cafe stairs, and she fell. We helped her up, reassembled her country dignity. Yesterday, I lolled in soft pause of coffee air just beside the counter. Shoppers streamed, magazine sellers changed coins. The bells of Clarendon Street Church rang out so that I, distracted, did not see this daughter hot knife her way along until she pulled up short before me, loops of hair damp with drizzle as she smiled. Was she grace or fate? What half-remembered female from the staircase of the past now gazed from her eyes at me? Inside, we ordered buns and coffee, settled down to pass the fragments of our stories, mouths generating some sweeter recognition, not just icing. The next one is called Wicklow, and it's dedicated to the women who vanished in Ireland in recent years, in the past 20 to 30 years, and have never been seen again. Among them, Imelda Keenan, Ciara Breen, Eeva Brennan, Fiona Pender, Fiona Sinnott, and the body of the Romanian young girl, Mario Rara Rostas, was recovered, and during the trial, one witness described how he and his companion danced on her body when they threw it in the grave. And then, well, anyway, that's all I'll say. There's also Deirdre Jacobs, Annie McCarrick, Jojo Dollard in that number. And it's a poem which works a bit in reverse at the end, in that I reverse the order of the lines, just from a technical point of view. Up here, a sky full of air and no sound. This is the safest place, their hidey hole and dumping ground. So deep, so dark. This is where they park, then leave no trace, depart again with bats and bricks, fists, hammers, chisels. One way or another, it is all about silence. And when a storm surges on the mountain, it's still about silence and claws of lightning that strike and split a tree, an upright post in a sloping field of sheep. The next morning, worms of light wriggle through heather, fondle globes of dew. Deer graze in the valley, streams overrun banks, spread silver cloaks along the grass as if this was the garden of innocence. Deeper still, the big house at Lugala, a falconry, another cloud-dark lake, hours spent with tasselled birds on the long rain, haughty queen kestrels out and back, grasping for fresh meat to tear, devour. But up high, cars drone the night beyond Sally Gap, higher, more distant, drive steadily through the dun light. Fog rolls across waiting slopes when they decide to dig, to bury, to sometimes dance on a nuisance grave above the body of the woman they want rid of. For this is the safest place, their hidey hole and dumping ground, so deep, so dark. One way or another, it is all about silence. And this is from the more recent book, Massacre of the Birds, and I'll read. I'll start with actually this isn't part of the work that Geraldine did. She did one called On Metaphor, which is about showering my mother, but this one touches on it as well. My mother says no on Bloomsday, my late mother as it is now. It is not easy to wheel an old woman to the shower on Bloomsday, when the world and Molly cry, yes, 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 and she is saying, no, 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 because what's left of her life depends on the freedom of no. How Joycean of her to resist the cleaned up conscience of filial attention. Your need to fix her taints and odours, wash hair and teeth, attend to toes, when all she wants is to float on the lily leaf of her own green bedspread, drowsing Molly in a tangle of snow-white hair. Now, dreams enclose her more than talk of showers or meals. The flowing waters of memory rise and touch her skin, just where the mattress eases spine and bones in that yellow-walled room. Hello, my darling, she greets his photograph, flinging kisses towards mottled frame. To her, then, the logic of no. To her, then, the logic of love. To her, the logic of no, her tongue untamable. This one is 20 inches of hair. And as we all sell different things in different ways. He arrives weekly, after dawn, when the green pigeons feed on figs, seeds, yesterday's specks of rice. This is what a wife does. For the children, for her keep, besides, wives are expensive. With such hair, other men will desire her. The agent cuts first to her ears, having measured from nape of neck to base of spine, where the sacred serpent rests. But her kundalini, curled within its chill of poverty, does not rise to meet her spirit. Beads of sweat gather at her neck as he cuts, then cuts some more. The dark fronds tumble to a metal bowl. Finally, his blade from the crown down, skin shearing until skull is revealed, bald as a peacock's egg. Some woman will thank you, the agent mumbles. He gathers the hair, wipes the bowl. They will bleach the sacks of blue-black hair from India for the pleasure of a woman with blue eyes. Extensions, the agent assures her, the latest thing in England. Money changes hands, agent to husband. Rapidly she draws the dupatta over her shamed head. The agent leaves. Outside, a peacock cries, "Ew, ew." Her husband returns, swings 2 green pigeons from his fingers. "Today's meat," he murmurs, avoiding her eye, places them, curl-clawed, beaks oozing, in the bowl that held her hair. And the final one in this lot is those prostitutes in Cuba. And I used the word prostitutes rather than sex workers. It just didn't fit to use sex worker. I know what the correct word is. And this is based on an account that a man I know told me about his experience of being in Cuba. And I'm not really talking about so much what happened to him as how it couldn't remotely happen to an older woman, though he's an older man. Okay. They were like two kittens, he said, snuggling up to him. They were fun and they liked him. I thought, against my own sex, how enviable his freedom to fall in with such company, then breakfast with them afterwards, heartily, admiring their health, their strong teeth, that vitality. It could never happen to a woman my age, two tiger men who would not wound, the three of us so human in a dusky room, sunlight stealing through the slats in colours from Matisse, the riotous world within and without. And I'm just going to finish with one more poem. And I don't want to bring things down again, but this is a poem that I wrote recently about, it's about Ukraine. And I was asking myself, how do I write about Ukraine and not go all, isn't it awful, isn't it terrible, all the things we know. So you all know that expression, the dogs in the street. All right. So this is the dogs in the streets of Mariupol. They missed the last train out of town when their owners fled with children, a favourite toy, a backpack. Empty-bellied now, a scrawn of rib and hip as their skin loosens, they wander bewildered through the city. Even the ground is angry, their paws slit by broken streets where they smell necrotic flesh. No one will call out, kindly urge them to lie at evening by the flickering hearth as their owners sip coffee. Nobody tells them what to do. Wounded trees in the park whisper warnings to the dogs about this towering darkness. At night, they curl tightly in a chill of blown brickwork. Their nostrils quiver, invaded by metallic traceries. Blood. Their soft ears fill with creeping silence from the bombed hospital nearby. In sleep, they tremble, these dogs who have missed the train. So I leave it there. Thank you very much for everything.